Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cosmic Force, episode 24. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tyler Reganti, and tonight we check in with everybody after taking an extra week off just to kind of say hi. It's been a little bit. We do our own UT League Fantasy Football check-in, and we actually have a decent amount of news to discuss before we get into the topic of the show. But first, let me go around the room and say hi to my fellow co-hosts, starting with the person that had the most epic of wins in this week's UT Fantasy Football League. Emma, you went to bed Monday night and you were losing by a point. Then you woke up Tuesday morning, and what happened?
Well, to be more clear, and hello, everybody, I was losing by 0.04 points.
My mistake.
Which is
my mistake.
One passing yard because the person I was playing had their quarterback going. So one passing yard, I was down. I woke up the next morning and it said I won. And I was like, what is happening? And turns out they made a scoring mistake. So I went to bed thinking I lost, and I woke up and I won by 1.04 points. And I don't know if it was luck or karma or whatever, but I will take it.
It's called talent, because we at the Cosmic Force know how to play fantasy football.
It's true. It's a skill.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we also have Caleb here tonight. Caleb, how are you doing tonight? I know you're not in the fantasy football league, but you have that amazing comic shirt on that I am super jealous of. And one day I'm going to wear it, and you and I are going to coordinate wearing it at the same
we'll
time.
Have that same one. Yeah, I'm probably the one who would do the worst at fantasy football, because I'd pick the dudes with the fun names like Wazakowski, because that sounds like a wizard. That's what you need in fantasy football, is because you gotta have a right balance between wizards and paladins, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, fantasy football is nothing if not nerds for sports fans.
Absolutely.
All right, and last but not least, we have one of the other undefeated members of the UT League Fantasy Football, Jacob. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Not too bad. It is a shame that although I'm undefeated, I'm technically third, because you are up there as well, and I believe James is the other person at the top. But doing pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's why I wanted to kind of check in, because those of you who do who check in with multiple shows, you know that Eric kind of gives you a weekly check-in of the UT Fantasy Football League, and he gives you a great indication of what is happening at the bottom of the league, because he is 1-2. And
Oof.
Wes, I believe, is also, if I check correctly, Wes
I think
is
he's 2-1.
So
yeah.
So Wes, I should give Wes more credit. But we as a show, the Cosmic Force is 8-1 as a league, because Emma is 2-1. I am 3-0, and as Jacob so nicely put it, I am leading the league in points, and Jacob is also 3-0. So we want to give you the UT community and an update on what is happening at the top of the league, because that's where that's where we are. I mean, and Eric does a great
exactly. If you want to see what the look feels like from the bottom, tune in Wednesdays and Thursdays.
Well, and then Tyler also wants to bring this up, because Eric always gives the update, but his update is pre the Monday Night Football game, and at the time I was the highest scorer, and now Tyler ended the week being the actual highest scorer for the week. So
I've noticed that, and that's it is what it is. Every week is one thing. I am just one to bring the attention. The more important thing is our records, and we are dominating this league. So that is something that I wanted to make sure everybody knew, is that
by the way, my only loss is to Jacob. So somebody had to lose. Yeah. Just saying.
So it's been a lot of fun. I know that Eric does give updates, and it's just kind of fun for us to check in, because he does it again before the Monday night week. Go Cowboys this week. They dominated the Eagles. And yeah, like I said, every once in a while we get a little flash of sports in with our nerddom. So if you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. We don't normally talk about fantasy football. I'm only doing that because, like I said, I'm in first place, and I'm not there that often. So it's nice for me to brag. Normally we talk about Star Wars, and we talk about comics, because we are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/utini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. If you can't join us live, that is okay. Our videos are on our YouTube channel for you to consume whenever you are able to. We are also on all of your favorite podcast platforms if you want to check us out in audio form as well. We are also part of the Utini podcast network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels to choose from. Whether you're into comics, whether you're into toys, whether you're into TV shows, whether you're into the news about the Book of Boba Fett coming out right before the end of the year, whether you're into the Marvel What If, we have a channel for you, and we strongly encourage you to come join us and hang out in just an awesome place of positivity. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Utini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Utini podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities. So that is our normal rundown. And like I said, I wanted to kind of, we took a last week off. I had a scheduled week off because I had some family stuff to do. And a couple of us kind of had a little bit of, we were a little under the weather. So I just kind of wanted to check in with everybody, say hi. How did everybody in our chat today? We've got Jared in the chat. We've got OK Andar in the chat. We got Be Nasty in the chat. We got Timothy in the chat. Hi, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate you guys coming back after we took a week off. But you guys around the room, how are you guys doing after having a week off?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Very exhausted. I am taking some really hard courses and starting to feel it. If anybody's ever taken organic chemistry, you know my pain. It's a thing. It's one of the worst courses in existence in that it is very difficult. However, I am enjoying it. Like, I've probably learned more in this class, just this class, than I have in my entire college career. And I'm in my third year now. So I think that says something. It's a lot of studying, but you know what? We also have some really awesome Star Wars stuff going on. I mean, I just bought 3 George Lucas Black Series today. So, I mean, it's a good day, right?
Yes, we had to create a whole separate toy channel so that we could talk about all of our Funkos. Emma and I are great Funko collectors. One day soon, we are going to corrupt Jacob to start collecting the Funkos.
I got some. I'm reserved.
Did you end up getting I know Emma got a couple. I got one. Jacob, did you get the Star Wars Black Series George Lucas as a Stormtrooper?
No, honestly, like the Black Series just don't do it for me. I don't like the 6-inch scale as much. So I didn't hit it up this time. If they come out like with a vintage collection sized one, I might, but no, I did not. I skipped on this one.
Caleb, what about you? How have you been? We've checked in with Emma. We've checked in with Caleb with Jacob a little bit. How have you been these last 2 weeks?
Good. I was very excited. I'm not going to lie. I was like everyone else was kind of. I was getting my lights lined up when people were like, oh, by the way, I don't think we can do the show tonight. I'm like, cool. I'll just sit here and watch like the first like half of all Star Wars Visions if that's what you want, and that's what I did. By the way, if you haven't, Star Wars Visions, highly recommended. It's a really, really fun romp.
I second that. It is a lot of fun to kind of see just a bunch of different anime or Star Wars themed anime, because that is what it really is. It is 9 completely independent themes and art styles, and they're all amazing. I mean, and I know that the guys over at the Living Force kind of touched on this. Everybody has a favorite episode, and it's all across the gamut, and that is what is so cool about Visions. I personally love the duel. I love the grittiness. I can't wait for Ronin. The duel is my favorite, and kind of a low an episode that I think is doesn't get the credit that it deserves. Is sort of it's one of the later episodes. It's not the cartoon.
You liked Lop and Ocho? Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yes, Lop and Ocho. Thank you for that. I'm not very good with names, because while it's the characters are a little bit different, it really hits to what the whole what the foundation. When you strip all the laser swords and space fights away, Star Wars is about family. Star Wars is about doing what's right for your family, whether that's blood family, whether that's friendship, families, whatever you call family. That's what to me, it's what Star Wars is. And that episode was really, really about that. And I really love that episode. So those two are my two favorites. Caleb, you said you would watch some Visions. What were some of your favorite shows?
I think the one
episodes?
that, like, pretty much all of it was good. I think the one that a lot of people are sleeping on and not really talking about how good it is was the last one, the Arakiri. I really liked that one a lot.
Nice.
It was like it was the only one, mild spoilers, that ended on a down note, like compared to the rest of the series. And that was like kind of nice, for like a fun one for them to actually end all the episodes on, is like, ooh, this is like a kind of a dark sort of ending. The other one that I really liked, my wife was a huge fan of Ninth Jedi. After that one was finished, she looked at it she's like, hey, so this is canon, right? I'm like, no, it's not canon. She's like, this is canon, right? Yes, dear, it's canon. So that one was really good. My personal favorite, I think, was The Village Bride. I think that one did everything I wanted. I think that's the standout and my personal favorite.
Jacob, what about you? What was your favorite episode of Visions?
I think I'm also gonna say the Ninth Jedi was my favorite. It's just, yeah, so good. Like, just the world they built down on like the planet side was like amazing. It kind of like reminded me, like, in a way of like Howl's Moving Castle, with like sort of like steampunk-ish inspired like aesthetics. Especially like with like the spaceport, but yeah, I love that.
I love the fishing lines that were fishing into into the ring around a planet. I saw that. I'm like, yes, that's so dope. That's so amazing.
Emma, what about you? What were some of your favorite episodes?
Yeah, so my top favorite in my rankings was the Ninth Jedi. Really, really awesome. I just loved all the lightsaber lore in that.
Yes.
And then my very, very close, I had a hard time picking between these two, but my second is The Elder. I really like that one. I like the two Jedi in there. Very Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan sort of vibes, and kind of a quieter episode, especially at the beginning. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good. I liked all of them, and in some sort of way, they were all great in their own respects. And I think it's cool to get these sort of unique Star Wars stories, something that we don't usually see, and I think that's great.
Exactly. Yes. Can't wait for season 2.
They're all short. They're all between 16 and 20 minutes. They're very, and they're not related, so you can come in, watch one, and pop back out. But yes, highly rated by all 4 of the hosts here at the Cosmic Force. So we definitely encourage you to go over there and support the creators of that show and give it a watch. So, all right, we do have a little bit of news this week, some comic related news. I will go ahead and take the first art part here, and that is a little bit of a downer. Both War of the Bounty Hunters #5 and Trail of Shadows #1 has been delayed. Fortunately, it's only been delayed for a week. So instead of coming out on 10/6, which I guess is next week, it's actually going to come out in 2 weeks on 10/13. And Jacob, I don't know if these two things are related, but something else to note is this is the month that Marvel is actually switching from Diamond to Penguin Random House as their distributor. I don't know if those things have been actually connected or if it's just coincidence, but that's something to keep in mind when it comes to this delay.
Right. Yeah. I haven't heard anything directly, but a lot of people speculate that that's the case. It's going to be a big change, and if you are getting comics locally, you might see some hiccups like in the next couple weeks as this change happens. But hopefully, it'll be pretty smooth sailing starting in like November.
Yeah. So we get a little bit of a reprieve next week for new releases, but we get it all back the following week. Emma, I want to give this next little piece of news over to you, and I will preface this. If you have not read The Rising Storm, tune out for the next 3 minutes, because this little piece of information is very, very connected to The Rising Storm. Emma.
Yes, very, very major spoilers for The Rising Storm ahead, so tread carefully. Wow, we got a preview on StarWars.com for Trail of Shadows #1 by Daniel Jose Older. And Daniel, sir, I have some words for you. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, how dare you? I opened up this preview while I was on campus, and it caused me to have an audible reaction, and rightfully so. I just don't even know what to say. I didn't expect this. So yeah, as Jacob is showing here, if you're watching live with us, we have our boy Loden.
As bad and worse than we all imagined it would be at the same time.
Yes, it is. It is somehow worse than the description in the Rising Storm, because he just looks. I mean, he looks like he's in such like pain and just, oh my god, it's creepy. It sent a chill down my spine.
It's worse than seeing Han Solo in Carbonite.
Oh, 1,000%.
Oh yeah. And then just the little pile of dust.
And I think what does it for me is these are what, 4 pages or approximately. There's no words. Like I think that is what really like brings it home, is that there's so much emotion on these pages, and it's all done by the artists. And it is just, these are the sort of moments that I love comics for, because it's such an emotional moment, and there's just no words to be written. You have the words from Charles Soule in the book The Rising Storm, and you have the images here in the comic, and it mirrors itself so well, and it's awesome. And it somehow raises that moment's the height of that moment even more. And it hurt all over again.
It did. And I want to mention the artist here, David Watcher, who, oh my god, absolutely killed this art. No pun intended. Damn. But a little too soon. Yeah, he did such a great job on this art. I mean, you can feel it all over again. Like I texted it to my dad. He listens to the High Republic audiobooks, and I said, Dad, like, look at this. This is like Loden from like Grisel. Like, oh my goodness. And he said, whoa. He's like, I just got the chills. And I was like, I know, right? I was like, this is why you got to read the comics. You get to see some of this stuff visually. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait for the story, by the way. Yes. I mean, we're talking about this tie into the Rising Storm, but talking about Trail of Shadows itself, like the article on StarWars.com starts with this quote, "It's a galactic whodunit," end quote. And that's all you needed to tell me.
Like,
I'm sold.
I was super excited. Like, yeah, whatever. Loden Greystorm, whatever. He's dead.
Excuse you,
whatever. But
some respect on his name.
But the reason that I was super excited is because we had film noir narration from our other protagonist there, and I was 100% about the internal monologue on the last couple of pages. I was that's what I was here for. It's like the like, I can't wait for some Phoenician blinds and dark shadows. Like, I'm excited for this one. Like, it's the Loden wasn't my favorite character, and you will at me at that, I'm sure. But as I said, I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great series.
And that was an appropriate reaction, Jacob. Thank you very much. We do not besmirch the name of Loden Greatstorm on this podcast.
Do you think he chose the name Greatstorm, or do you think he changed it like when he turned 18?
No, he was definitely born with that because he was born to be great.
Absolutely. So that is going to be a very, very emotional moment when that gets released on 10/13. We do have one more piece of news, and Caleb, I will toss this little rumor. We're going to go ahead and classify it as a rumor for now, but I will go ahead and toss this little bit of rumor news over to you.
Oh, I think I did hear about this. The rumor is that IDW, the publishing between Star Wars Adventures, might be losing the license to Star Wars. Like, I forget, where would this like first news like come from? Are we getting? Is this like Twitter stuff?
This is news? Bleeding Cool, which is like not my favorite outlet, but is a pretty big comics news outlet. Pop culture news.
I was gonna say, I feel like Star Wars Splash Page also shared something about this.
So I haven't had a chance to read too deeply into this, but are they like losing the license, or is it just opening up for other people to take control of the publishing?
There's like almost no details. It's basically just speculation saying, hey, IDW is probably going to lose the license because Marvel wants to do something else with like their all ages category. It doesn't have any dates. It doesn't say anything about the implication of the stories that are already in publishing. It literally just says, yeah, this is looking like it might happen.
Interesting.
That would be
So
too bad. I like what IDW does with most of their Star Wars stuff, and I think it's important for kids to have comics aimed at them. So I hope, if it is the case that they are losing the license, I really do hope that something comes in its stead.
So this would obviously affect Star Wars Adventures, the High Republic Adventures, and then some of those independent stories, such as what is out now,
Monsters at Temple Peak,
Monster
Ghosts
of Temple Peak, yeah.
Ghosts of
Temple
Vader's
Peak,
Castle.
Ghosts of Vader's Castle. So again, this is still rumor. We have not heard anything from official sources like StarWars.com. But it is comics news, so we did feel that it was worthwhile to at least bring up and say, hey, we've heard this too. We haven't heard anything specific yet, but just something to keep in the back of your mind in the event that that something does change in the near future. So, all right, we are going to go ahead and dive right into the main show. Since we went long on kind of our introduction, we're going to kind of skip the art of the week, and we're just going to go right into the weekly pull list. And we are going to have 2 weeks worth of weekly pull lists. So, Jacob, we've got quite a bit available for us since we last were on air.
Yeah, so I did cut out some of the single issues that came out last week, because, I mean, you probably figured it out by yourself, but we did have something special I wanted to highlight from last week, and that's the Volume 2 of the Rebels manga adaptation. So this finally came out in the West. It's been out in Japan for a little while, but came out in the West last week. This is by Mitsuru Aoki, and that, it did both the writing and the art for this. So if we got any Rebels fans, I'm sure we got a few here, then you can definitely pick that up. And then as far as comics for this week go, we have Star Wars number 17, The Chase, written by Charles Soule, with pencils by Ramon Rosanas, cover by Carlo Pagulayan. The colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg. Ramon Rosanas on the inks, and the letter is Clayton Cowles. Then we have Star Wars Adventures number 10, written by Michael Morici and David Scheidt. With pencils from Michael Avon Oming and Stefano Simone, and the cover is from Francesco Francavilla. Then we also have Star Wars Adventures Ghosts of Vader Castle number 2, with our lovely Jackson on the cover here. It's called Attack of the 50-Foot Wookiee, written by Kevin Scott. Pencils, cover, and colors from Francesco Francavilla, with assist on the pencils and colors from Derek Charm. And the letter is Sean Lee. And if you want to pick up any of those, you can grab the links down in the description of the YouTube video.
Yeah, I believe Star Wars Adventures, the cover is kind of a 2-part cover, right? I believe
Yes.
issue 9 kind of had the other half of that cover art on for this week, correct?
Yeah. There's a Mason, like Count Dooku and like clone kind of big landscape.
I'm not gonna lie, the
Yes.
way that cover is lit, I honestly thought that that was Asajj Ventress, not Mace, because they're both bald and stuff. I like first glance, I was like, oh, it's Asajj, because it's like all villainy and stuff.
Nope.
Nope,
I
it's
can
not.
understand
It's
that.
Mace.
I can allow that on a passing glance. Absolutely.
I think that was wishful thinking. I could use
Mhm.
some more Asajj content for sure.
Oh, absolutely. If it's
Agreed.
anything like Dark Disciple, then absolutely, let's bring in more Asajj content. So, all right. Well, we are going to go ahead and take a quick break for us to catch our breath, and then we're going to go into our main topic, which is Sithtember. Yes, that is a pun. We like those here at Utini. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about all of our favorite Sith Lords in comics. So we'll be right back.
Darth Vader lightsaber lamp, and I just like I just knocked over everything in my office so I could get this into the camera shot. I knocked one of the posters off the wall with
Anderson cover. I have
Yeah.
heard the Anderson cover described by some friends of mine as one of their least favorite Legends covers, and I don't totally know why. Maybe it's just because Depa Billaba has this dead stare in the background.
You know what it is? Emma, what is your art of the week this week?
Yeah, so I don't have anything as dark and depressing as that corpse, but
All right, we are back, and so in our notes, this was a welcome to Sithtember. It's kind of the end of September, so this is kind of a hey, thanks for visiting Sithtember. Now that it's at the end of the month, but Caleb, this was sort of your idea here, so I'm going to let you kind of give us a little bit of an intro as to what we are going to be talking about tonight. So. When you brought this idea to the team, what exactly did you have in mind, and what are we going to be talking about tonight?
I had the pun in mind. I thought Sithtember.
all great ideas are born.
Exactly. So I decided to go with that. I've created a couple other punny names for other months. So maybe we'll see some of that goes on, maybe a little sooner than you think. But
wink, wink,
wink, wink. But we have some. I decided, hey, we did a Darth Vader episode, so let's dive a little bit more into some of these bad boys. There's dozens of Sith Lords that show up all throughout the comics, if you count the legends. When we get into the canons and a little more specific of what's recently come out, there's there's significantly less, but they do make up for having some really good appearances, where they not only appearing in comics, but also in video games and other media. So that's always exciting. So we just want to take some time, delve into kind of the dark mysteries of the Sith. We wanted to highlight some of their villains, their stories, what makes them tick, and kind of pull out some of our favorite moments and favorite events of what these characters done. So we're just going to go over an overview of some of our favorite Sith that have shown up in the canon series, talk about them a little bit in more detail, have a few general discussion questions towards the end, just have a good chill time talking about the most high-strung people in the galaxy.
All right, and we're going to start with the most infamous and famous of all Sith, and that is our Lord Darth Vader. Jacob, what do we have here in the notes talking about Darth Vader tonight?
I mean, I don't really even know what I need to say at this point. I mean, it's Darth Vader. Like, he's been around for Jesus 44 years now. If you don't know, you don't know at this point. But yeah, he's takes on a pretty interesting role in the canon comics. We've got we've talked about so many times. He has 3 ongoing series, 4 miniseries, appears in basically every other ongoing series that isn't the High Republic. The man has left his mark across the canon comics, and it's been, especially with Dark Lord of the Sith, it's been an interesting evolution on the character, seeing how this person got from Revenge of the Sith to the Darth Vader we know from the original trilogy. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Let's go around the room. I know it's easy to just say Dark Lord of the Sith, but what adaptation of Vader is your favorite and why?
This is an interesting question. It is very easy to say Dark Lord of the Sith, so I'm going to try not to. I think by default that is most people's answer, because it's such a well-rounded comic series. But I think right now, in this moment, I have to say the Darth Vader 2020 portrayal of him.
You stole my answer.
I know. Here's the thing. It's such a good series. It's a well-rounded series. It's really I think showing him in between episodes 5 and 6 is such an interesting time period with him and Luke, their relationship, and sort of all of the emotions that come with that. And then you've got Ochi of Bestoon thrown in the mix, and how he deals with the Emperor's underlings. It really puts him through his paces, and the Emperor makes sure of that. And I think Vader's always the most interesting when he is on the more morally gray side, and when we are made to care for him, and that certainly happens in the Darth Vader 2020 series.
I was going to say, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that is why I was going to pick the 2020 series, is because we all know, even outside of Star Wars, everybody knows who Darth Vader is. He is the evil of all evil characters in all of cinema and all of entertainment. And yet in 2020, we still feel bad for him. He is still abused emotionally and physically by the Emperor. And it is an amazing arc to watch him continue to get beat down, continue to have to watch him overcome every little thing that the next trial and tribulation that the Emperor throws out at him. And I think that's why if I have to eliminate Dark Lord of the Sith and it's sort of comics origin story, I'd have to go with 2020, with the early part of the 2020 series, because it's a completely new. I didn't think that you could feel bad for such an evil dude as Darth Vader, and somehow these creators have made us feel, at least me, feel bad for him in what he has to go through from what the Emperor dishes out to him.
Exactly. My feeling here, which I just saw Blind Fates in chat, I think just said everything I wanted to say. I really like the 2015 run because we see him at kind of the height of his power, but essentially Palpatine takes away all of his like resources, all of his power, all of his underlings, and then Vader kind of does like the sort of thing that Siths really are really famous for, and starts building and networking out his own power source and his own things, and starts going behind other people's backs. And like I feel like that's not something that Vader's really good at. We don't see him do it very often. So being kind of put on the scheming side and the plotting side, I really enjoyed seeing that aspect of him. We might dig a little bit more into that in a bit.
So I want to go around and ask the room real quickly, because we have a lot to talk about. Jacob mentioned that that Vader is kind of everywhere, but yet I don't feel like we have too much of him. So I'm going to go around the room real quick and say, I'll start with Emma. Do you want an arc, or do you want a story that it puts him on the bench, or are you happy with the sort of stories that we have with him?
So this is a really hard question, because he has had so many series focused on him, so many arcs focused on him, and I've enjoyed all of them way more than I thought I would, because I was never like rah Darth Vader, but now whenever I see him in the comics, I'm like, oh my god, it's Darth Vader. Like I get excited. So part of me wants to say yes, I want more Vader, but I'm also very interested in other villains. We have a lot of Vader. I think we've explored so much of his character now that I feel comfortable with saying that we could let Vader go soon. For now, anyways. Of course, there's always going to be more stories to tell with Vader. He's the most iconic villain, arguably, in pop culture. I'd be interested in exploring some more Sith or some Sith adjacent characters. Okay. I think maybe giving some other people time to shine, because Vader has proven to us that these ambiguous, really dark and evil villains that we're not supposed to root for, we can really care about them. So I think he can pave the way for some other really awesome characters.
Yeah. I like that.
Absolutely. Like we will never stop getting Vader stories. Like even if they take a year off, like 20 years from now, we'll still be getting cool new Vader stories. And that's exciting. So, I don't mind if they slow play it a little bit and, take a step back and, foot off the gas for a little bit and, let some other, stories go on. Like, maybe we should let his comic relief of Ochi of Bastoon have a series.
I'd be down with that.
Jacob, what about you? Are you feeling any Vader fatigue yet?
I would say a little bit. Again, like Emma said, I don't think I've ever had a story I'm like, I don't like this. But I think I would be happy for them to because I've accepted, you're never not going to have a Darth Vader ongoing series. I mean, we had the most we ever had was we had the year of the Dr. Effer series where that was it. But even then, you still had some Vader mini series happening here and again. Right. I would be very happy for Vader to kind of take a back seat and I know he's gonna be part of Crimson Reign, obviously, but maybe be a little less involved, because looking at it right now, Vader in War of the Bounty Hunters, I have not loved as much. Whereas
I would agree with that.
the first 2 volumes of the 2020 series were so good. Like, I just kind of want George Pack to be like, here you go. Here's Darth Vader. Like, go screw around, do whatever you want for 24 issues and see what happens. And don't worry about the rest of like the comics or what's going on. Like, I kind of want that rather than the Vader is spread too thin across everything kind of thing we have going on right now.
Yeah, Greg Pak, he writes Vader so well. He and Soul both do such a great job. And I agree. Like, I haven't really liked Vader as much in the War of the Bounty Hunters. I feel like he's extremely focused on Luke, which I do like seeing. I like seeing his emotions.
He
is.
I feel like he's forced into the arc here.
I agree with that. Yeah, like he's ultra focused on Luke, and like, of course, Luke is at the auction and stuff like that for Han. So of course he's there, and I feel like that's the way that they got him there. But at the same time, I do like seeing his relationship with the Emperor, and also seeing some of these side missions that he goes on. So yeah, I agree. Greg Pak, please take Vader. Do it. Just go wild with it.
Well, let's transition from arguably the most overwritten Sith Lord to, in my opinion, the most underwritten Sith Lord. My favorite Sith Lord, and that is Darth Maul. The evil, the vindictive, the constantly struggling for power, the person who seeks to overthrow anybody above him, regardless of what position of power they are in. The constantly scheming, kills without any thought or hesitation. Darth Maul, and the question that I kind of want to lead this little part off is he, for lack of a better term, the perfect Sith? Now, obviously, Sidious is his own category, and he's a manipulating, long-term, big picture sort of guy. But the heart and the core of what the Sith are is there any better Sith personified than Darth Maul?
Like he's the mascot. He's the
I
he's
really
the
think so.
cheerleader.
I like that.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think Darth Sidious really, knocked it out of the park trying to train Maul into his apprentice here. And like, as I said, one of these things that we didn't really see in the movie, but now so we see in all the like extra sort of content here is he's such a schemer. Like, we wouldn't look at Darth Maul and say, oh, he's the sort of guy who would go to like and create an entire new criminal underworld to serve his needs. But that's what he did. He went to and like chopped off the heads of literally of the Pike syndicates and Falleen and the Black Suns, and created his own sort of shadow empire just so he could have more power, just so he could try to overthrow Sidious. And that's the sort of thing that raw, naked ambition is really, really impressive. And that's why I think I don't know why I keep trying to call him Sidious. Darth Maul is such a fascinating sort of character, and he's such a bowling ball of rage as he goes around. He's always angry, he's always mean, and like his struggle is always so interesting. Like, we know he can't win, but like we've seen his character arc from the beginning, most of the beginning, all the way to his like end in Rebels, and like every time he's on screen. I will admit, when I first saw him in Rebels, I'm like, why are they pulling him in? Like, surely we have more interesting things to do or bring in more characters. But I'm really glad with what they did with his character and how they managed to put a really nice bow on his arc here.
Emma, with the announcement of Crimson Reign and the inclusion of Kira, and when we last saw Kira on this big screen, she was speaking to none other than Darth Maul. How much of a role do you hope he plays in this little arc? Obviously Kira is the lead of this, but do you want him to be heavily featured? Do you want him to be kind of a tertiary character that kind of pops in and out strategically? How do you want Maul? Well, do you even want Maul to be featured in this, or where do you see him playing into this new Crimson Reign title coming out?
Yeah, so I desperately want Maul to be in Crimson Reign. I don't want him to usurp Kira's spotlight in the series by any means, but we see a different Kira in War of the Bounty Hunters than
Yes, we
who
do.
we saw at the end of Solo. I mean, she is jacked, first of all, so she's physically different, and she hints that she has had encounters with Sith in a menacing way. So there's that. I want to see that. I need to know what happened. I think Maul has shaped Kira into who she is when we see her in War of the Bounty Hunters, and I think that's extremely important for what's coming next. So I really hope that we see some flashbacks. Maybe I want to know what happened, like when Kira went to Dathomir. Like he says, "Meet me on Dathomir." What? Take me to Dathomir, please. Give me like a mini series and have it focus on Maul and the Shadow Collective, and have Kira come meet him there. And it's just gonna. I mean, it would be perfect for the comics format, truly.
Has there ever been a bad story that has been focused on Dathomir? I can't.
No.
I can't think of one. I can't. Yeah, exactly.
Not at all. Like I didn't even have to think about that. The answer is no. I mean, Dathomir itself is such a cool planet, and then when you add in Maul and all the crazy stuff that happens there, I mean, in Rebels, you see his like anger shrine, with Duchess Satine and the dark saber. Like, it's just he's such a good character, and the comic series, I can't remember what it is. It's the continuation of one of the Clone Wars arcs.
Son of Dathomir.
Son of Dathomir.
That's what
That
this
is
art
such an
is from.
underrated.
Yeah,
it's so underrated. It's so good.
Mhm.
I mean,
My
isn't
favorite.
that where we meet Gar Saxon?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, and he plays a huge role in season 7.
Yes, he does.
And yeah, I mean, that is so underrated. I think I hope we get more Maul in canon comics very soon, because I mean, like this whole episode proves, Sith translate very well into comics, and Darth Maul might be one of the best ones besides Vader in comics.
Yes, but these two Sith do have one person in common, and that is their master. And of course, we're talking about none other than Darth Sidious. So, Emma, what sort of talking points do we have tonight about the Mac Daddy of all Sith in Darth Sidious?
Yeah, so I mean, Darth Sidious, he is the Phantom Menace. He is the person behind everything. He's been controlling everything behind the scenes, the puppet master. A very interesting character in himself, just in the movies. And then when you add in the TV shows and the books and, of course, the comics, you get some really awesome stuff. So one particular example that we have here is in the Star Wars Annual #1, he has a body double, right? And he lets him die in order to flush out the traitors against him, and basically imprisons innocent people. And that just shows a lot of like his ruthlessness. That was one of the first times where I was like, whoa, like this guy is really, really, really evil. like it's a different kind of evil for sure.
Exactly.
I mean, you see in episode 9, like he had the plan with the Snokes in the jar, and his whole like obsession with living on after death. He didn't want the galaxy to move on after he died. He thought that the galaxy was meant for him and only him. And that is a whole different kind of maniacal, obsessive evil that I think just translates into some incredible stories. So obviously a lot of strings being pulled by him, lots of different plot points. I want to know, like, what do you guys think is like the simple one of the best sort of, I don't know what I'm trying to say here, like the best plot that he makes up to sort of make things go to his will? What do you guys think? I mean, for me personally, like I mentioned before, it's the Snokes in the jar. I mean, he just lets his failed clones go loose and do his bidding. Like, that is so disturbing. I mean, he's just letting this like deformed, pseudo Snoke or pseudo Palpatine go out and carry on his bidding with the whole final order stuff. That's nuts. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Like, Yes, Palpatine has a lot of like layers within layers within layers, like schemes within schemes for those Dune fans out there. Just a quick aside here. One of the big things I really liked about the Star Wars Annual #1 was I think that's one of the few times we see Sidious, the Darth Lord of Sith, without Vader. And it's very strange almost to see the two of them separated, because like 90% of the time we see him, 95% of the time we see him, like Vader is by his side or he's talking to Vader. So having someone else like interacting and talking to the Emperor is really rare. So that's very fun to kind of see how he plays without Vader around him. Like the sort of big thing that we want to talk about is like in Star Wars Episode 9, he has like in the last half of the 2020 series, the last main completed arc, we get to see that he's creating an entire like battle fleet of like Star Destroyers, just to like in case he dies, he can take everything with him. That's the sort of like the vindictiveness we see in his characteristic of how he definitely doesn't play with the idea of like like one of the things that I'm reading through the Darth Bane series is like the idea of carrying on your legacy and letting someone else take control of the Sith. He doesn't seem to be that's not his modus operandum. He doesn't want to carry on or share power. He seems to be so obsessed with living forever, so he doesn't have to give that thing up. And he goes through like how many different apprentices?
Yeah.
Like at least
a lot.
least 3.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a lot for a Sith.
I really liked where the current Darth Vader series left off with him. I mean, if you were to look at me and say they're retconning the movies or further explain the movies, I can't argue against it. But at the same time, it still fits his character. And so it's very interesting to see what we saw in Episode 9 come to fruition and have the breadcrumbs lead to there. And like I said, it kind of has a little bit of the shock and awe lost because it's coming out after the movie, but it still makes it an interesting plot point, and it still makes the Emperor a more interesting character to see how smart he is and how forward thinking he is compared to everybody else that we have seen in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the, I think the most intriguing parts, especially of the Darth Vader 2020 series to me, is how he purposely tries to break Vader. He is the ultimate abuser, really, is the only way to describe it. He wants to extract all of the darkness out of Vader by bringing out the worst in Vader by whatever means possible. Jacob, do you think that the Darth Vader 2020 series has been the best portrayal of this, or do you have another favorite portrayal of this? And what do you think of it?
I do like that part of the story, part of that relationship. Although, I mean, we definitely did get a bit of it in the 2017 or the Dark Lord of the Sith series. We saw, Palpatine basically breaking in Vader like from the get-go with hey, go earn your lightsaber. Hey, prove yourself against all these Inquisitors. Like up until the last arc, it's always it's. I mean, all of the Vader series, even 2015 series, is hey Vader, you screwed up. Now it's time to prove yourself again. It's just kind of constantly mentally and emotionally breaking him down to make him subservient to Palpatine and make him another part of his toolkit. Like I think it's the Tarkin book that like he's like talking about like how it's like everyone is a chess piece. Like every single person in like my like. I got my Thrawns, I've got my Tarkins, I've got my Vaders, and they all serve a different purpose. They all have their different utility. And like, they're all for my use. So yeah. Or was that Aftermath? I don't know. One of those earlier books. But yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like Vader is almost his favorite whipping boy. I think he hates Vader more than he hates Jedi to a certain extent,
Yeah, part of me wonders, like, if Palpatine might be jealous because Vader had these two children who were very powerful in the Force, and part of me wonders. I mean, obviously we know that later on he has a child I guess maybe or it was. I hate thinking about it.
To be expounded later.
His lineage continues.
Yes, it does.
Somehow
in
it has
whatever way.
returned.
Yes, in whatever way that may be. Don't think about it too much, otherwise you'll gross yourself out. But so part of me wonders if it's like a jealousy type of thing. Palpatine is all about legacy. He wants to live on, doesn't want the galaxy to live on without him. Maybe he wanted to be the chosen one, the one that controlled everything in the galaxy, and he couldn't do it, and he knew Vader would be the one to do it. So I find that Palpatine to be very interesting, especially after the Rise of Skywalker. Very interested in his motives, his sort of ways of doing things, and I hope that once War of the Bounty Hunters ends, I hope that we get a continuation of his story, and also Vader's story in Vader 2020.
Absolutely. And just one thing I want to quickly throw in here. What do you guys think is his greatest apprentice? Because might be the only chance I really get to talk about this, but I was going through it and I was thinking, I think Count Dooku might have been his the one to actually take control of the Sith after if Palpatine had ever actually naturally died.
Well, yeah,
Vader's not an emperor. We've talked about this before. Vader's not the sort of person you'd want running an empire, but Count Dooku is definitely that sort of charismatic leader type who could have actually taken control of it.
You'd have to I would rebuttal that with what would you define as greatest apprentice? Because if you're talking about somebody in the event that the emperor dies and needs to pick up what his plan was and continue it, I would absolutely agree with you. But all 3, 4, however many apprentices he's had these days, they are very uniquely different. And so Vader is in the Enforcer, and that's the role that he serves. Maul was the
assassin.
The assassin that helped the Emperor gain the leverage that he was able to gain during the prequel times that I don't think Vader or Tyrannus really could have done. And I think Tyrannus, had he not been taken out when he was by Anakin, definitely could have helped run and, for lack of a better term, govern the system with Sidious.
Well, the thing is, though, I just made me realize that it's almost like Darth Sidious was swapping apprentices out for what he needed. He needed an assassin for when he needed Mauls to do things in the shadows and kill things and be a rage-filled wind-up toy. But he was done with that. So then he needed someone to spearhead the coalition against him so that his senator persona could rise to power. So he created Darth Tyrannus. And then after that, he doesn't need a second in command of his empire. He needed an enforcer. Right. So
and that leads us to an interesting transition to our next topic, because while this person and this group of people weren't ever classified as his apprentice, they were still kind of set up and developed by Sidious. And of course, we're talking about the original Umbrella lightsaber owner, the Grand Inquisitor, and of course his class of Inquisitorius. So Caleb, talk a little bit more about this group of dark side users.
Exactly. And that is the thing, is they are dark side users. They are Jedi, pretty much all to a man, who have been corrupted or fallen to the dark side. And throughout the series Dark Lord Sith, they're constantly said, oh, they're not Sith, they're dark side users. But I feel like, and I want to bounce this off to you guys very, very quickly, what do you think is, when you see the Inquisitor, do you not think Sith? I think they're Sith. I think they're a subcategory of Sith.
I think they're Sith. They've bled their crystal. I think that defines you as a Sith in my book, anyways.
I don't think any of them could have taken out a Sith apprentice, but I do think that they are weaker members of Sith of the Sith.
Yeah, I mean, it's you can put whatever label you want on them. They're not a Darth Lord or whatever, but they're at the very least an acolyte of the Sith, if you want to call them that.
Exactly. And they're a fun sort of series. I think Vader's killed off more of them than any of the rest of the good guys put together. But they're
I think Cal Kestis might have.
I was gonna say Cal Kestis
only did 2. They only did 2, right?
But weren't there only 9?
Well, here's the thing. They've never actually defined how many there are. And that's kind of a good thing because they kind of need like, for lack of a better term, cannon fodder for Jedi for these in-between sort of things. So they need villains for, like, the Ghost Crew to go up against and Cal Kestis and Ahsoka.
Cal might have only killed one.
Yeah, I think he only killed. Well, no, I don't think he killed any because he chopped off the large sister's arm and she fell off the. She's coming
that was indirect.
back.
I'm counting that one.
She's coming back. She's coming back. Like,
Yeah,
I'll dollars to donut. She's coming back. And then the other one was killed by Vader.
Spoiler.
So
Oh, never mind. I tried.
it's like 3 years old.
It's like you're
fine.
pulling a West or something. Damn.
The game has been out for quite a while, so
right.
yeah.
So-
At this point, you should have played it already.
And
Yeah, I
if you haven't,
apologize.
what are you doing? Go
Mhm.
go play it or watch a playthrough on YouTube. It's so good.
It's a lot of fun.
Just knock the difficulty down when you get to her because she's
Yes.
impossibly hard.
That's rough.
Yeah,
Yes.
like,
And when you get to Zepho, just memorize the map. That's all I gotta say.
exactly, if you start it, you'll be stuck by New Year's. So yeah, so like that's the sort of thing. Is do we think that we're going to see any more of these Inquisitors pop up to fight Luke in the 2020 series?
I don't
Do
know
I
if we'll
think so? No.
Yeah.
Would I be surprised? No.
Do I want it?
When's like
Yes.
the latest we've seen them in the timeline?
We did see the ghost of the Inquisitor.
Well,
in the
yeah, no.
2020
When's the
series,
latest
but
we've seen a living one in the timeline?
I guess Rebels, right?
I think Rebels
'cause-
was it.
Right.
because Rebels leads up to
Yeah, that's like
what
right
are we
before
talking
New
about?
Hope, basically.
A
Yeah.
year? Does it go closer to a year before the Battle of Yavin?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely way after like the comics that they show up in, or like Fallen Order or any of that stuff. Or so yeah, I guess that'd be that'd be the latest we saw them. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know which ones are alive at that point, because I was like, I could see like Cal Kestis for Jedi Fallen Order 2 just like destroying like most of the Inquisitors. Like I could see that being like a plot point, but I guess at least like 3 of them have to live to get to the show.
Exactly.
That
Speak.
as much as I'd like to see it, maybe not necessarily an Inquisitor under the service of the Emperor, maybe somebody who somebody who was thought dead. I kind of feel like having them run into Luke spoils his lack of. I mean, so we're already at Empire in the comics. It kind of ruins his moment with Vader in the movies. You start to water that. The more you have him fight other Sith, for lack of a better term, and get it takes away from how unprepared he was, and yet how powerful it was to have him still overcome the evil force that was the Emperor and Vader in Return of the Jedi.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I mean, as cool as it would be to see, Luke fighting other Inquisitors, I don't know if I would like to see that. Maybe after Return of the Jedi, that might be cool. But I do want to see Inquisitors show up somewhere doing something, because I think they're really cool. And as of right now, I think a little underutilized for their coolness. But yeah, I bet we'll see them somewhere, something soon.
Exactly. I said, and one thing was we did actually see Luke come across the ghost of the Grand Inquisitor, whose soul has been like eternally bound to defend the ancient Jedi temple. Like that's
so cool.
harsh. That was like so like kind of unexpected and like just like tragic of what happened to the poor Inquisitor there. So do we think that's the last we'll ever see of him in the series?
I think he served his purpose, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it might be a little redundant if he showed up again. At the same time, it might be kind of cool to see him give Luke some advice. It might be interesting to see if some of his advice might counteract some of Ben's advice, or see sort of that clash between the two in Luke's mind.
Exactly, because I thought there was a point where we were almost seeing a redemption arc with his character in Rebels after he died, when he was making some Force visions to Ezra. I thought like we could maybe see a redemption arc there. So maybe it was something like that. And then maybe eventually one of these years, we might actually learn his name. We still don't know his name. He's just known as the Jedi who turned into the Grand Inquisitor.
His name is Grand. and he is grand.
Well, we couldn't have this discussion without having mentioning at least one comic only Sith
Mm.
Lord. And of course, I'm talking about my favorite comics focused Sith Lord, and that's Lord Momin. And you know, he's a little bit different than most Sith. He is an artist first and a dark disciple second. But something that was really interesting for his stories, he kind of pulled on the legends, you know, a little bit in the story of Exar Kun, in the sense that he had he built his own monument, and he had his essence trapped in that mask. And so do we, I present this to everybody. I'm going to go to Jacob first. Do we like this idea coming from Legends? And two, do you think that this is a effective way that we can potentially bring other dark temples or other Sith prior to the rule of two back into the world that and the universe that we now know?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, I really love this like vein of more like dark magic sorcery type Sith Lords like Momin and oh god, the guy from Myths and Fables. Kaldoth. Kaldoth.
Kaldoth.
Yes.
Yeah.
That like that's like my favorite kind of like Sith Lord. I really like this ability to kind of, you know, play with the fact that, you know, you only like I kind of like the fact that you can play with the story to bring in other dark side users. That's not just like, we found another dark side assassin person from nowhere, look at them, they're gonna be dead in a month. I like this idea of like, you know, you can kind of pull from the history and not be constrained by the rule of two story wise. Like we have this one, and then I'm not gonna spoil anything, we see something similar happen in the High Republic comics recently. So, you know, it's kind of fun where you can play around with that and not just be like, well, we have Darth Vader. There are.
Isn't that enough Sith for you?
Yeah, it's nice to not have to be like, we're either Darth Vadering it or we're like gonna get our like a red shirt style like dark side assassin. So yeah, I like this.
Exactly. Like, and knowing Soul, we will absolutely come across some dark Sith temple crafted by Lord Moment down the line. It might be in 5 years, but I can totally see that happening. We're going to see like something calling back to his creations.
Well, and I liked the fact that, and it's been a little bit of time since I've read his story, but Palpatine wanted to take over the universe. Moment wanted to take over his universe, but I never got the feeling that he was this galaxy-wide, you know, menace. And I like the compactness of that story of a dark side user that wants to be all powerful, but not galaxy-wide all powerful. And I think that those create very unique stories that can fit into the world of Star Wars without wondering, well, why didn't we hear about this person before? Or, you know, the issues with Marvel, you know, television shows, in the sense of, oh, well, we have to create a you know, enough drama, but we can't make it too big because then we just have the problem of, well, why didn't the Avengers just come in and take care of it? Like, I like that smaller focus of a bad guy who has his own intentions, who is clearly evil and clearly wants to take over something, but doesn't want to take over the galaxy for all time. And that's what I think I really like about Moment. In addition to the connection to Legends and the idea of his, you know, using his essence, you know, and trapping it in an artifact.
Yeah, I like the idea of something as small as, I'm gonna take this one artifact and put my essence in it so that someday maybe someone will stumble across it, and I'll influence them. Like, he does feel very small compared to Palpatine's goals. And I also like the idea of more sort of Sith like imbuing themselves into objects or places. Like I think of like the High Republic with those those like statues or whatever it was that were keeping the Drengir's like energy in place in the station.
Mm.
Like things like that. Very cool. It's very like Indiana Jones. I don't know, like like you find this rare artifact and oh no, it's cursed, you know.
Exactly. Like
I like that stuff. It's
yeah,
cool.
like the question is like, do you think this was like Darth Momin's mask? Was this something he alone created and made like the magic, that the technology to do it? Or do you think this was like a Sith thing? So maybe we'll see more possession masks down the line, more stone masks to turn people into powerful Sith Lords.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it might have been like the Sith power. You know how like the Jedi, they have the Jedi texts, and there's like in one of the, I'm gonna sound like super extra nerdy, like more nerdy than I normally sound, but in one of the reference books, it says that the Jedi texts sort of like gave instructions on how to repair a kyber crystal and repair a lightsaber, and that's what Rey used to repair the Skywalker saber in between 8 and 9. And I wonder if it was something like that, where there was like some Sith text and they had some instructions like, hey, if you want to put your essence into a helmet, here's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I could see with like, they talked about like in the Cal Doth stories and like Myths and Fables, like they're like, oh yeah, I just got like a ton of like Sith spell scrolls just like chilling around. I'm like, I'm sure one of them is here's how you make your Horcrux kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I just started, thanks to Corey, spewing all kinds of love for Darth Plagueis. I've just started that audiobook, and the beginning of that book definitely talks about the lineage of Sith artifacts and Sith knowledge being passed down, and the concept of my interpretation of the person who originated it knew that they weren't powerful enough, but knew that the Sith down the line would be powerful enough, and so they're kind of paving that road. And I would love to see that concept sort of evolved in a comic form. And have it be essence transfer or any sort of thing like that. I that really seems like an awesome idea to be able to use the power of the medium of comics to kind of bring to life. So yeah, those are our major characters. Now, Emma, you've got a handful of just sort of questions that we are going to talk about. I know we're running a little bit long here, but it's been 2 weeks, so you're gonna have to bear with us for a little bit. So Emma, what sort of questions, overarching questions, did you want to bring up to the group tonight?
Yeah, so really quickly before we dive into the questions, I thought of a few characters that I wanted to give a shout out to, special Utini shout out. I want to first shout out Snowcat. He's a very important Sith. I also want to shout out Naked Palps. I hope Jared's still in the chat.
Talking about this Naked Palps?
Yes.
Did I flip to in the middle of the show? Maybe.
I love how Jacob had the page ready to go. Yeah. That is the most Utini thing ever. Okay. So yeah, I just want to shout those two guys out. They deserve it if we're talking about Sith in comics. Okay, now to some questions. Let's get serious again. Okay, so big question here: the rule of two. It's a big theme with the Sith throughout the movies, books, comics, everything. Everybody knows only two there are, no more, no less. Do you like this rule, or is it a little too limiting with what they can tell story-wise? Tyler, I'll start with you.
Can I say both?
Sure.
I mean, I feel like at the time of Bane and through the, we obviously don't know what's going on in the High Republic, the rule of two was effective and it was necessary. Do I think Palpatine could have, for lack of a better term, won had he created a Sith empire and a Sith army of Maul and Tyrannus and Vader and the Inquisitor and all those people? Yeah, I do. So I kind of think in that sense it was a little limiting, but it served its purpose when it did, because the Sith needed to go into hiding, and it was effective because for a while there they won because the Emperor was the Emperor. But he was a little bit limiting in the fact that had he been able to not be so self-centered on his own power, I think that he would have been able to stay in power, or the Sith would have been able to stay in power had he created a whole army.
Caleb, what are your thoughts?
Very similar. Like, I feel like the Sith kind of shot themselves in the foot for a while. Like I said, I'm going through the Darth Bane trilogy right now, and that's a huge thing about, him realizing that there can only be two of us, one to hold the power and one to crave the power. And that's like a very interesting dynamic. But as I said, it come like when I first heard about it, I'm like, that sounds like a terrible sort of thing. What happens if one of you gets a cold and dies all of a sudden? Like, like that could be that's a really, really like tenuous sort of thing. But if you're like a Darth Force user, I'm sure you're like powerful enough to avoid those sorts of things. But like even the Emperor himself, like, towards the end, like as I said, he brought in like he brought in the Inquisitors. He could have killed Maul during the Clone Wars, but he didn't, even though he already had an apprentice with him, Darth Tyrannus. Darth Tyrannus started training his own apprentice. So like it's, I love it when there's like a rule that it's very obvious, like this is our rule, but then you see the characters like purposely break the rule and bend the rule. And I like it when they kind of take these human elements of like, this is a sacred rule for us, and then everyone just completely disregards it. Like that makes some very interesting drama and very interesting characters there. So that was a lot of fun. But I think the rule of two, I think towards the end was definitely a limiting factor.
Yeah, I agree. Like the idea is cool. However, like it is super short-sighted. Like you got all these Jedi and you think like, yeah, oh yeah, no, it's gonna be fine. Like two of us, we can take them, it'll be fine. Jacob, any thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, so I feel like, oh man, it's the rule 2 is like politics in a way, where you you have your political system, and your political system could be perfect if people were perfect, but unfortunately people are not perfect. So like it works,
especially
like,
Sith.
it works pretty well until the point you get like Emperor Palpatine that ruins the whole thing. It's like he becomes less focused on becoming more powerful and more focused on preserving his power, and that's kind of what, like, in my mind, ruins the whole thing. And then yeah, I don't know. And then like also like, it's like the whole like going back to Legends and Darth Bane's like, we're gonna become so powerful. This rule 2, we're gonna concentrate this power so much that we're gonna overthrow the Jedi. Bro, like the Jedi were in control for like thousands of years, and you were in control for like 30. So how did that work out for you? Not even 30. Like, how did that work out for you? Well, apparently, like, I don't know. Doesn't seem like it did very well.
Yeah, they don't like to pay attention to what happened in the past. They're just, in a way, they're positive thinkers. If you think about it, in a weird way, they're very optimistic that things will go better for them, but it never does.
Exactly.
All right. So next question here. So the Sith are kind of portrayed like the exact opposite of the Jedi. They're like, the Jedi are good and the Sith are the evil Jedi. But do you think that that's exactly the case? Like, I definitely don't. I don't think that they are evil Jedi, because I think that the Jedi have their purpose, which is to protect the greater good of the galaxy in a selfless manner that protects and helps the most people as possible. Whereas I think that the Sith, they just happen to wield lightsabers like the Jedi. They do not use them for the same purpose, nor do they have the same purpose. Their goal is not, it's quite the opposite of selfless. It is very self-centered, and their goal is not really galaxy centered. It's really focused on them and maybe their master and maybe a few of their friends if they're lucky. So I think that the Jedi and Sith, while they're kind of portrayed like the same, I kind of believe that they're very different, even though maybe I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe you guys think that they're the antithesis of Jedi, maybe not. Jacob, I'll throw this to you first.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like you just kind of go back to like, I'm not nerdy enough, unfortunately, or not cool enough, I guess, to know the like Sith code and the Jedi code off the top of my head. But I mean, you go back to those. They're, in a way, are they inverses of themselves, kind of, but they're also unique in their own way. It's not just bad Jedi. It's not just Jedi with red lightsaber. Yeah, I don't know. This was like, gonna be completely honest. This is the one question. I'm like, man, I kind of hope Emma doesn't ask me because I really don't even know what I'm gonna say.
I how does that go? What is it? Peace is a lie. There's only passion. Through passion, I gain strength.
I don't know.
Through strength, I gain power
I was
and victory.
I was spammed through this part of KOTOR. It was like, which one is it? I'm like, I don't know. Give me my crystal.
What? I'll brute force it if I have to.
Like, you should go back
my
and read it.
God.
I'm like, I'm absolutely not going to do that.
Like that sounds like something a goody two shoes Jedi would do.
It's so true. Caleb, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think very easy. It's a lot of people have portrayed the Sith as the anti-Jedi, but I think there's a lot more depth into digging into it to really get some dirt in between your fingers and see why the Sith are the way that they are. Star Wars is very much a good guy versus bad guy story, and I don't really want to see that compromised. Like, I still like the idea of if you have a red lightsaber, that means you're a bad guy. I think that's something that's needed in a lot more than people think. I think it's very nice to have villains that are villainous, and you can oh, that's the bad guy. So when they're defeated, we can all feel good. So that's one thing that I'm very, very happy about. So I think it's I would like to say maybe a little bit more nuance here, but I don't want to try to make too many more people think that the Sith were actually the good guys all along, and they're without the Sith there wouldn't be Jedi.
Yeah.
See,
Tyler, any thoughts?
I want to see. I enjoy good villains, and so I want to see the Killmonger of the Sith. The Sith who falls almost. I'm gonna go Legends again. Darth Caedus. I want to see the person who falls to the dark side for good intentions, and then have it be and have it consume them. That there's a reason. You can sort of understand their initial process, the desire to save their family, the desire to save their heritage, the desire to do good, but it becomes they become consumed and they eventually lose their way. But in that process, you get a good villain and you get a good story, because you start to think, well, maybe does the bad guy win? And when you start to put in that sort of system of doubt of, well, maybe the good guy will win, maybe the good guy will kind of win, that starts to make the ending of the story that much more impactful, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, good will always triumph over evil. We all know that. But if good can kind of lose and still win, it makes that story much more powerful. When you have a complex villain, that makes a good story. And I'd like to see a complex Sith.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, sort of as we're wrapping things up here, sort of kind of looking to the current and the future, a little bit of both. So during the High Republic, we see little hints of Sith on one of the covers, but other than that, we really don't have Sith in the High Republic, be it books or comics. And so that kind of brings to my mind, do you hope to see Sith in the High Republic? And if so, what are your hopes for them in the High Republic? Anybody want to take this first?
I'll go first. No, I don't want us to see Jedi versus Sith lightsaber duels in the High Republic. I would like to see maybe some them making references, or maybe somehow discovering that there's someone pulling some strings and trying to destabilize the High Republic, seeing the trappings and the fingerprints for the Sith. If maybe the Jedi were more focused on finding them, they would actually see them. But I don't want to see the red lightsaber wielding Sith pop out of nowhere and start dueling with everyone. I don't think that's the theme they should be going for. And I'm really happy that we have a story arc, a time frame where the Jedi are just Jedi, so we get to see them, not having to deal with the constant fight with the Jedi versus Sith. I think that's very refreshing. So I don't want to see that being marred. But again, I think it would be fun to see if some writers can put some subtle references to something behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. Am I going to be surprised if we eventually get a Sith? No, but I think it's an easy way out, and I think
yeah.
I think the current creative team behind the High Republic are better than that. And not that in the event that they do create the Sith, that means, you know, takes away anything that they've done. They've done an amazing job, and I couldn't have asked for more you know, awesomeness from what the High Republic is. But it's an easy answer, and I would just, I hope they don't go away, or they don't dive into that. And I would like at the very end, maybe the Sith, you know, because we obviously know that the Jedi have to fall. Maybe the weakening of the Jedi causes the rise of the Sith. I'd be okay with that, but I don't want them to be a part of this fall. I want them to kind of, you know, have Marcion Rowe and the Nihil and the Drangir be their own battle of wits, and leave the dark side force users out of it.
Jacob, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm also of the mindset that I'd be okay with them like in the background, like pulling some strings, but I definitely don't want them to be the forefront. A few like more specific parts of that, I definitely don't want them to be like, oh, it was the Nihil were in control of this by the Sith all along. I'm not sure I really want that. I think it'd be cool because, like, you know, the whole like pulling the strings, that sounds interesting, but that's also like the prequels. Like, I think it'd be interesting to like differentiating from that a little bit. Instead of having the Sith at like, you know, the literal center of the galaxy, you have like some like wandering, like, I don't know, like some Ronin style Sith like in the outer rim, just like, you know, popping around, like just destabilizing areas, but being very low key about it, and kind of building power out there. Maybe, you know, maybe going to like the wild space. I don't know, like that'd be cool. But yeah, I definitely don't need like, yeah, I don't need the, oh man, it was the real bad guys was the Sith all along. That's not exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's funny. Like all three of you took little pieces of my answer. I I do want to see Sith at some point, because I feel like the High Republic is kind of leading up to how the Jedi are when we see them in the prequel trilogy. And I personally think that should include the Sith as well. But when we first see them in the prequel trilogy, they're not really on the map. Like nobody knows about them. So I think it'd be kind of cool if the Sith did show up, but in this like very, very tertiary way. Like not even, nobody interacts with them of any consequence, but we see that they're like, you know, gaining power maybe in like the unknown regions. That'd be pretty cool. And nobody knows of them, nobody hears from them, but they're training and they're gathering forces or something like that. And maybe there's like a splinter group that shows up in the main galaxy, and then we get, you know, Palpatine, or, you know, whatever it is. I think it'd be cool to have some sort of involvement so that we can see how we get from there being no known Sith to all of a sudden there's you know, Palpatine and Darth Maul in the prequel trilogy, kind of like how we see the Jedi's downfall, and how the High Republic is going to lead into that.
So we've got Plagueis. Plagueis is clearly canon because he's mentioned in Revenge of the Sith. Is Tenebrous officially canon? Okay, I don't know. I mean, Bane was made canon based off of season 6 of Clone Wars, so we have Bane. I don't think Xana is technically canon anymore.
Like Bane obviously had an apprentice, but we don't know. That hasn't been named yet.
So we have a gap. We have a gap between Bane and Plagueis that as far as I know of has not been filled in canon. Be Nasty in the chat is also saying that he's in
I'm muted.
the Tross
All right.
visual dictionary.
Yeah, okay. I was muted because I was coughing earlier. Yeah, really quickly, running down for the listeners again. The legions in the Rise Skywalker dictionary are Revan, Andadu, Tanis, Tenebris, Phobos, and Desolus. So,
but outside of a mere name mention, we don't
that
know
doesn't
anything
mean
about
anything.
them. We know nothing about them. So there's a lot of gaps to fill in there, and you have to think at some point that they're going to be connected to the High Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Like timeline wise, if you're going off Legends, I mean, the High Republic, Tenebris is probably alive doing stuff at that point. I would imagine. You know, I don't know how long. I don't know how long a Bith lives, but
I think according to the Plagueis novel, he dies. Tenebris dies around. Jared, correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. Like 74 BBY. Somewhere around there.
Yeah,
it says on Wikipedia, it says that Darth Tenebris died on negative 67.
67. Okay, close enough. But yeah, so still after the High Republic, but prior to any moment that we've seen. So yeah, so there's a very big, when you really think about it, there's a really big hole in our Sith lore that we really would not be surprised if we start to get filled in by the time that the High Republic ends.
Yeah, I really hope that if we do get Sith in more Sith in the High Republic, and I hope that it's in comic form, because as we've talked about all of tonight, Sith really translate well into comics, and I'm really excited to see what comes next from Sith, whether it's in the High Republic or whether it's more Darth Vader or whatever it is. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yes, well, that is why we did the show tonight, because the Sith in comics are a real, they're fascinating, and they really add to the comics lore. So thank you all for joining us tonight for this talk, and we hope that when we get around to next Sithtember, we'll have more Sith to talk about. So before we close the show tonight, I do want to remind everybody that next week is our first manga roundtable, and that is because we are discussing The Edge of Balance Volume 1. We've kind of been talking about this for, it seems like a month now. So you have should have had plenty of time. It came out to everybody no later than September 7th, so you've had some time to read it. But we hope you join us next week as we discuss that manga. But until then, that is going to do it for this week's episode of The Cosmic Force. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, or right here on YouTube.com, where we broadcast live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Also, be sure to visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. And we also encourage you to join our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord. Yeah, you can even throw support to the show and Utini by heading to patreon.com/Utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thanks to OK Endar, Jeremy Kisna, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Kyle Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilison on our Alliance High Command for their continued and amazing support. You can tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show or the hosts individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thank you again to all of my co-hosts, Emma, Caleb, and Jacob, for hosting with me tonight. Thank you for everybody who was in the chat tonight. It was nice to talk with all of you again after taking 2 weeks off. And a special thank you to our listeners and viewers, wherever and whenever you are listening to us or watching us. We do truly appreciate your support. Until then, we will hope to see everybody next week. But until then, may the Force be with you.